Hey, and good Tuesday morning, everybody. Meteorologist Greg Majeski back with you here on the Weather Notice YouTube channel here with the weather report here on your November the 4th, 2025. Hope you guys having a great day. Boy, we're going to have a lot to talk about here on this update. The weather this week, not bad, except for the West Coast. They're going to be really getting pounded by several systems, but the big weather story is the fact that we got this, been tracking this for a few days, this big Arctic air mass that we're going to see invading here, coming across the eastern half of the United States into next week. When I was doing my little, trying to create my thumbnail, I saw what it generated, and I was like, oh, I thought that was funny, so I went ahead and put it on there with the penguin invasion. So it's definitely going to be something we're going to track here going into next week, and there will be some snow with this as well. Now, before we get going, if you're coming to this update after the live broadcast, and if you'd like to get a straightforward weathercast where we don't treat every storm as the storm of the century, we give it to you straight, please go ahead and consider subscribing to the channel. Again, our motto here is real simple: to keep you prepared and not scared. There's enough hype game out there in the social media world, and I don't like to play it, to be honest with you. So anyway, let's get into our update here for today. Again, our cold spot yesterday was Grand Lake, Colorado, hit 15, and our high, typical, Tekapoa, California, down there in Southern California at 97 degrees. Actually, it didn't change that. So 98 should be 97. 97 was our high yesterday. But again, we'll look at our surface map here for this morning. Again, not looking too bad out there. It is very rough out here on the West Coast. Got some rainy weather there in Northern California to show you. Got some rains here coming into portions of Montana as well. Got a little disturbance down here riding across Colorado and into New Mexico. Most of the east, we got big high pressure here in control, looking pretty good. Very nice indeed. Not overly cold here. I'd say seasonally chilly, but most of the middle of the country has been seeing, kind of above normal temperatures for the most part here for a while. But again, we got some changes coming. Look at the current watches and warnings out there. Got a little bit of fog once again here across Tennessee. They had it yesterday. It took forever to burn off. We've got some high winds up here across the Northeast, some windy weather out here on the West Coast, as well as some flash flood watches there right along the Northern California coast. And we've got a little few winter weather advisories there across Idaho and into Montana here on your Tuesday. All right, hey, Samuel Miller just came on board. Hey, thanks, Samuel. Appreciate it. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about our radar right now. This is out looking out on the West Coast. Getting some rains. Don't look all that impressive, but we did some rains here in Northern California. And this is the area that'll have to deal with potential for some localized flooding. But again, not too bad, not too severe, okay? I know, good news out in the tropics. We continue to be quiet. We've got 26 more days to hurricane season, and we got nothing expected over the next 7 days. That's the good news, and hopefully it'll stay that way. Now, our main weather story for the short term is going to be the West Coast. We got to talk about the West Coast because that's where they're dealing with the heavier rains right now. And you can see these areas for marginal heavy rains here. Talk Oregon and Northern California coast. This is Eureka, Redding, into this area right in here. That's your day one outlook for today. Day two will include Washington State kind of getting into this again as that deluge of atmospheric moisture kind of continues to plow into that area, and also day three. So again, no big changes here over the next 3 days here for some localized heavy rain events here and there across the West Coast. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the model data. Let's go get into this. And oh, by the way, you're gonna love the climate outlook. I hinted yesterday that they were gonna change it, and they did in a big fashion. Wait till you see that. So anyway, let's go ahead and take a look here at the short-term model here. We're looking at an intermediate model technically, taking us out for the next couple of days here, the NAM 6Z. A lot of attention out here on the West Coast. Obviously, we got a lot of heavy rains out here. We do have a disturbance that's going to be riding across the Great Lakes, across the Northeast. Yeah, got some snows up there going into Wednesday and Thursday across New England. So again, the path is to the north. We're definitely quiet. We got high pressure down here across the southern tier, looking pretty good, but very wet and stormy all up and down the West Coast. That one system moves in, and then there's that next one dropping down across the Northeast, the Great Lakes in the Northeast. But majority of the country for the next couple of days looking fairly quiet, not really that bad overall. And as we look at the temperature wise, again, seasonally cool to actually above normal for a lot of places. We're starting to get some hints of some of the cold air starting to come up here toward Montana and into the Dakotas. Again, when you see the blue, that's 32 degrees or below, okay? That's when you can start looking at the freezing. And one thing you're going to notice on this, compared this to what you're going to see next week, is just how widespread the blue is going to be. By far the biggest and coldest air mass that we've seen so far this fall as we're getting deeper into the fall season and eventually going into winter once we get into December. All right, so let's go look at this. This is the model here, okay? This is going to show the big change. But I'm going to leave this right here. We'll do this here on Wednesday. This right now is why it's so quiet. You got the high pressure and control down here to the south. We got that big storm here on the west coast, and we got these little drop-ins that are coming this way. But eventually, we're going to see this thing really dive down here as we go into this upcoming weekend. Watch that little timestamp there as we go forward. And you're going to notice this. It's really going to drop down there significantly. We start getting the impacts. Friday, we got a system that's coming in there, and it really digs down deep here going into Monday. Look at that. Wow. That is amazing. You got the jet stream kind of going up into Canada, coming back this way, and doing a big deep dive. And we're going to really tap some cold air and bring it down here toward the south. Like I said, by far the coldest area we've seen so far this season across the eastern third of the United States, thus the penguin invasion of Washington, D.C., because it's going to be pretty cold there as well. All right, so again, this is going to be a hit and run, those folks. It's going to pull on out. It lifts out, and we'll moderate there in the east, and then it looks like we settle into, it's like a little drop-off feature, trying to cut off a little cutoff feature across Texas. We have to watch that. I mentioned this yesterday. I was showing this yesterday, too, where we have this little drop-off features. When you get this, depending on how warm it is down here, and you get something like that, that's where you got to watch out for potential thunderstorms and stuff like that. Again, not going to see it. This is out to the 18th. We've got a long way to watch this, but that's just something to watch. You can sometimes get little severe weather events to spin up when you get that kind of feature to kind of develop. So something to watch. You'll get a little bit further into the month. All right. Now, as far as our fronts and stuff, okay, so let's go look at this real quick. We'll talk about this. So we're going to see this kind of moving on by here. Again, we got the 1 week system coming across the Great Lakes here going into this upcoming weekend. This little front coming into the southeast, dropping a little bit of rain there. And you got another weak system up here up here toward the Dakotas. Now this one here, this is that energy that's going to be tapping down to the south, and it's going to come in earnest. And then when the cold air really starts to come down, look at the freezing line, which is right here. See that little blue line right there? That's the cold air. See how tight this pressure gradient is? There's going to be a lot of winds in here too. Probably some wind advisories in here as well as this thing dives onto the south. And as it dives to the south, boy, it really acts, when you get this kind of cold air, it really acts like a bit of a sponge. It really squeezes it out big time. So you get some snows there, even across North Georgia, into the Smokies. Getting some snows there. We'll get some snows across the Great Lakes here. The lake effect will kick on as for sure as this goes on by, and it then kind of clears on out as we go toward the next 7 days. All right, so that's our focus. Let me go in a little bit closer here for you guys to kind of see this. Let me go to the eastern half of the United States here. I'm going to go ahead and switch this over to this. So again, I want you guys to kind of see the eastern half as this thing moves on by. This got this cold air coming on in here. We're going to, again, you see that blue line? That is your freezing line, okay? That is our cold air rushing on in. Look at the snow showers. Tennessee, North Georgia, into Kentucky, West Virginia. Again, any snow accumulation would be fairly light, not going to really amount to a whole lot, but it's just indicative of just how cold the air mass is as this goes on, going into Monday and Tuesday. And this is going to Tuesday, but quickly moves on out. It retreats out. So again, a 2-day, 3-day at the tops hit and run for the cold air next week across the eastern third of the United States, and it clears on out. All right. Now, let me go back over to this here. So we'll talk this first. Here's your precipitation rain-wise. The Northeast, obviously, with it dropping down there. The West Coast, a lot of heavy rains out here, 5-6 inches plus. Definitely not in the cards there, especially California, Oregon, and portions of Washington State. Most of the middle of the country pretty dry. Again, they've got an active storm track here across New England, and we got the rain here with that system coming in Friday night and across the south. Here's the snow. Again, we got it in the higher elevations out west, Intermountain region, and we're starting to get some stuff here in the east. And you notice it here. You see a lot of gray there. A lot of that's like less than a half inch, but a dusting of snow here for a lot of places, including into northern Alabama and Georgia. I don't know if I believe that. Flurries, I probably would believe. The higher elevations, I know Brasstown, Bald, and Georgia just recently had some snows at 4,700 feet. So the mountains, not out of the question. The Smokies getting some upslope snows here across Tennessee and into the North Carolina, western North Carolina. And they're heading up here toward, obviously, West Virginia. The lake effect starts to kick in here. You see this across portions of the Great Lakes with some of the hot zones kind of lighting up there. So definitely looking very winter-like here for next week. And as a result of all of this, as we kind of wrap this update here together, we got some big changes for you here. And of course, I've got to reset this again, but I'll reset it there. There's that big change. Again, I mentioned this yesterday. I said there's no way they're going to keep that map the way it was, and they changed it big time. So the eastern third of the United States, the penguin invasion, we're going to be very cold here across these for about 2 or 3 days, and then it's going to really warm back up. Again, this is going from the 9th to the 13th the next week. And, you know, so by the time we go to the 11th to the 17th, it's just the Northeast, and we're back to above normal for a lot of the country here. Now, the dry weather is going to continue to be there for a big part of the country. This will continue to be dry, wet on the west coast, a little bit wet up here toward the northeast because that's where the storm track is. That's that high pressure ridge. You can kind of see that for right now. And then as we go in through 8 through 14, it starts to back off just a little bit. So, and that looks reasonable based off what I'm seeing here on the long range model data here. So again, quiet for the most part for this week. Gets a little interesting for next week with a cold air, a little bit of snow. Again, we're not talking like a major snowstorm here, but just to kind of get you back into the thinking that, hey, you know, we're deeper into the fall season. Winter will be here before you know it. And then we'll be talking about you know, the first big winter major storm eventually. Not really this. I wouldn't really call this a big winter major storm. Not just this is lake effect driven, cold air driven across the east. And boy, you folks out on the west coast need a break, man. You don't get a lot of heavy rains out there. All right, who we got out there? We got Edith and Rita. Good morning, guys. Good to see you out there this morning. Appreciate you guys checking out the channel. And again, you guys, if you ever got a weather-related question, as always, just post it down below. All right, that's y'all's update for today. You guys take it easy. Be good. Stay safe.